Welcome to part 6. If you're just joining now, I do recommend going through this series from the start if you're interested in building APIs in Django, because we've covered a lot of ground here. I hope you're liking the series so far, and looking forward to what we're going to be doing next. So let's start. We've basically got our post API CRUD figured out. CRUD meaning create, read, update, and delete. And there's one little tweak I want to do to it. One thing we're not actually returning here is who created this post. And, on whether it's an Instagram post or a tweet or whatever, generally knowing the author of it is important. So what we're going to do, we're going to set up another submodule of API called user. Now, for the time being, although there will eventually be other endpoints in here, we're not going to worry about, endpoints for creating user accounts or anything like that. We're only going to worry about making a serializer right now that the post serializer will be able to make use of. So we'll make serializers. We also want to make sure that this should not be a folder. This should be a file, serializers.py. And we want to put in init.py in here so that it's treated as a module. Okay, so in here, we are going to create a user serializer. Specifically for now, we're going to be creating what we're going to refer to as the user public serializer. So this will only include data that can be considered public. Like for instance, although a user has an email and, in fact, even has a password, obviously that's not stuff we necessarily want to expose in our API. So, we might just have the username, eventually an avatar, maybe a bio, that kind of stuff. So to do this, we're just going to import two important things. We're going to import from REST framework serializers, and we're going to import from our own access.models, our lovely user model that we made in maybe the second video in this series. And here we're going to create something called user public serializer. And it's going to extend serializers.model serializer. And this is not any different than what we've done so far in our post serializer, for example. We extended the model serializer. Now for this, in our meta, the main difference is, first of all, our model is not going to be post. It will be user, the one we just imported. And for fields, all I care about for now is actually the name field. Because if we look at our user model and open it up here, I don't want to expose any of these things. No need to say is admin, but eventually we'll add, other things to here like bio, maybe an image, that kind of thing if we have time. So we're only going to expose the name, but at least sets this up in a way that we can extend it later. Okay, so we have that now. Now what's cool is we can actually go to our post model and we can go owner equals, and we can use that user public serializer. Now we will have to import it. So from api.user.serializers, import user public serializer. And then we have to make sure we still have this down in here. And we also don't want this to be something that we want to make it read-only, because the way we're setting the user is not based on user's input. It's based on who the requesting user who's logged in is. Now I'm just going to show something. I'm going to turn this off, aka comment it out, and just show you what this would look like if we don't use the user public serializer. So if I hit this, I'm going to get user back, or owner back rather, but it's just the primary key, which won't really be of any use to anyone. Putting this in and saying, hey, it's a user public serializer, Django REST framework will now look for a user with that ID, and it will actually respond to it as sort of this nested object now. So we have owner and it has name, and then in here, we would have profile picture and bio and whatever else we decide we might want. In fact, let's add a bio now, because we haven't done too many things in the database side of things for a bit, and I'm getting a little bit bored. So let's actually make a bio. I am going to put this sort of down here, and this is going to be just a models.text field. Now we will allow this to be both blank and null. Actually, we'll just do blank equals true. We won't allow it to be null, so it'll just be an empty string if it's not supplied. So we have that. I'm going to just stop my server, and I'm going to run python manage.py make migrations. And we should see here, add field bio to user, and then let's actually run the migrate. And let's just open up our admin for access. And in our details, maybe after name, you can put it wherever you want. We're going to have bio. Now, if we run our server again and log into our admin, and go to our users, we can actually edit their bio. However, I realize that I only put this in add field sets, which only shows up if you're making a new user, which we do want it there when they're making a new user, but let's also put it here. And I'm just going to reorder these. I feel like email is kind of a more important thing. Let's have it higher up. So refresh again. We see an empty bio. Hi, I'm Tyler. And I will just click save. And now if we hit Postman again, we'll actually see if we remember to do one other thing, which is actually in our user serializer right here to put the bio in. And hit this again, we'll actually see this object. So you can see you could obviously add more fields and so on and so forth and decide what is going in here. Now, at some point, we might also have a user serializer that has their email and some other more sensitive data. But that would only be used for endpoints where you are that authenticated user, because you generally do not want to expose, someone's email address. Even if you're not showing the email address in the UI, it's pretty easy to look at your network inspector for another user to find out, someone's email if you decided to do that. So never trust your front end. Always make the API secure. Okay, so we got that out of the way. What I'd like to move on to now is working with an entirely new model. So we've already made this model. If I go to my content models, we have a comment model, which has an owner, a post, a body, and then a flag for is deleted. So this is a little bit different than how we were doing the soft delete here, where we had status. And that's because we have 3 different kinds of status. It could be a draft, it can be published or removed. But for a comment, I don't really see the need for 3 different types. It's either deleted or it's not deleted. There's not really, I don't think drafting a comment is something that is a common use case. Of course, you can do it as you wish, but we're going to keep this simple and also be able to show, a different way of doing the soft delete, which is just a Boolean field. So that's our comment model. And what I'm going to do, and I'm going to do this part in terminal because it's just a little bit easier in my opinion. We're going to go into our API folder. We're going to make a new directory called comment. And apparently I already have a comment. Yes, I already have the folder there. So let's go into there. I'm not actually sure why I have that folder already. I guess we just started to do it at one point. But anyways, we have it there. So we already have the URLs. But let's make sure we have a init.py. So let's just touch __ init.py. And all this is really a way to tell Python it is a module, so we can import things nicely. You can put things in these files to sort of like do something on, initial load, but that is usually not a common thing you need to do. Okay, so we have URLs. Let's also make a few more files. So let's have our views.py. Let's have our serializers.py and query sets.py. I'm not going to worry about filters because, again, don't really see a need that you will be able to have to filter comments. It's something you could, of course, do. Maybe you only want to, on a certain post, see comments that are flagged as appropriate or something like that. But we won't worry about that for this. Okay, so let's start with our the query sets. So here we're going to import the model comment, and we're going to create something called all comments query set. And this is just a nice practice because it allows you to have sort of one central place where where you'll be setting kind of like what is visible from the API's perspective. You could, of course, have this code scattered throughout this sort of thing here. And specifically what we want to be saying is we only want to have ones that where is deleted is false. But doing it this way means, and if you decide only to work with this throughout your API, you'll know it'll be safe. And if you change something in your, like say we change comment instead of having an is deleted and instead use that sort of like status with the 3 different flags, changing it in one spot is all you would have to do instead of looking through your code for all the instances of it. So great practice. And when you're within your API, anywhere in this API folder, you should only, anytime you're calling, more than one record, like basically doing an ORM filter, rely on these because it's like one central source of truth. Okay, so that's all we need for that. Let's go to our serializers now. So here we got to import a few things. I'm going to start by importing, similar before, REST framework, import serializers, and from content.models, import comment. We're also going to import that lovely user public serializer that we just made, because we also want to give comments, an author essentially. So let's create this. We're going to have comment serializer, and it's going to extend our serializers.model serializer. Having some trouble here. Okay. And then very similar to what we did with post, we're still going to have that owner equaling the user public serializer. It is a good practice also just to do read only true for here. Read underscore only equals true. And in fact, I should probably do that on the post model too. Post serializers, let's do read only true. Just so it doesn't actually try and set it, even though we do have it here, but it's just good practice to sort of do it that way. Then we are going to have a few fields in our meta. So we'll put our meta in here where the model is comment, and we want to send back the UUID, the owner, which is going to be a reference to the user public serializer, the body, and when it was created. And then we want to just say these ones are all read only here, and we'll be good to go. All right, so there's our serializer. There's our query sets. And let's go to our views now. Okay, so there's a few different views we need. I think we'll start with just listing them. And we're actually going to do this in an interesting sort of way. You're welcome to do it this way. You're welcome to kind of do it the way you want. But because when I'm requesting comments on a specific post, I really only care about comments of that post. So in my head, at least, this URL, which is going to be one for getting all the comments of the post, I feel like the actual URL lives better inside our post URL schema. And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to copy the two that we have the retrieve, not the me, but just the retrieve. And we'll just go down to the bottom here. And we're going to update the URL path to actually have comment with the trailing slash. Then from here, we're going to go from, instead of .views, we're going to go api.comment.views. We're going to import something. We haven't made this yet, but we're going to be using this. And I will just put these here as a placeholder so we don't forget. I'm not going to save this yet because it's going to do something funny with my server, but we'll come back to this. So basically, I just want to do anything to do with like, hey, just give me the comments of this post. I want to kind of keep, at least from a URL structure, it here. Because then it's like, okay, I know the post ID or UUID, and then I can just call /comment, appended to that, and I'll get all the comments back. Just keep stuff a little more clean, in my opinion. So now we'll go to our views that we have here. And I'm just going to import a bunch of things and walk through it. So we're importing some of our generic stuff from REST framework, all these things we've seen before, nothing new here. We're importing our all comments query set. That's what we just made a few minutes ago. And that's so that we make sure we only get the ones that are relevant, aka not deleted. We're also going to import our comment serializer that we just made. And we're importing our normal permissions, the comment model, and this like bad request in case we need to, do something. And we'll see that in a bit. So let's set up a region, because I like kind of having things in regions, and we'll just call this base class. And we are only going to have one base class here. There's not going to be a me version of it, so we can just call it base class. And this will be called comment API view. And again, this is just like a super class, an abstract class, essentially, that will be kind of setting the default sort of properties that we're going to be using in the rest of this file, and then be able to override them as needed. So the things we care about are what query set we're going to be working with, and it's going to be that all comments query set. We want to say our default serializer class is our comment serializer. Our permission class, we're going to allow any by default, because even if someone's not logged in, we want them to be able to see comments, maybe not make a comment, but see it. And then we can have stuff for what fields will allow ordering in the API, meaning the API client can be like, hey, I want to see these in ordered by created at, or, they can also put a negative to make it go backwards. But by default, we will be ordering by negative created at, so that the newest comment's at the top. And that's just how we're doing it. There's, of course, many different ways and pros and cons of both. All right, let's make a new region. We're going to call this one public, as well of our public sort of things will go, and end region. I'm not sure why it's indenting weird like that. And now we're going to make our comment list view. So this isn't a list create view or a list retrieve or anything like that. It's just going to be meant for list views. So we're only going to use the list model mixin, but we are going to extend our own mixin here, which is called comment API view. That way we already have all these things set for us and we're not like retyping this a few times. So just a good practice. All right, now in here, let's make our get, and we just do self request args kwargs, just the basic boilerplate, and we'll ultimately want to return a response from here. Now let's go back to our URLs now that we actually have this before we forget, and we'll actually import this one because this is exactly what we want to use here. And we have it there. So it's going to hit this with these sort of things here. Now we don't really need this lookup field. And the reason is we're not, and I'm missing a thing there. We're not actually looking up a comment with that. We're just hitting this comment list view. And this is actually the UUID or the PK of the post. So I'm getting rid of the lookup field. We're not going to be able to do that like automatic magic here that Django REST framework can normally do. And partly the reason I'm doing it this way too is also to show you a different way of doing things, and when you need to kind of take over control and not just use the basic stuff. Because if you remember in our post views, like we're not really writing much code here. We're just configuring stuff like what permissions to use, and then we're handling it all over to the super, which is what's within these list model mixins and create. In the comment stuff, we're going to be doing stuff a little bit against the sort of grain to show how we can do it. So what we need to do here is, because we are supporting two different URL patterns, and I just like that practice. I like being able to look up by UUID as well as by PK. We need to kind of like account for it. It might be coming from this, or it might be coming from this. So what we can first of all do is we can check our kwargs here. So kwargs actually has all those parameters, and I'll just open them side by side so we can see it a little better. But basically, whatever the name of the field after the colon is something that's going to be in our kwarg. So we can actually go kwargs. And actually, I think I also, no, this is right. Yeah, if kwargs, UUID. And we can just do this even a little bit safer. We can go if kwargs.get, because get you can do on dictionaries, UUID. Then we can do stuff. Now, in that case, we will just update our query set. So normally our query set is just this all comments serializer, but we can go self.query set equals all comments query set dot filter. So we're kind of changing what we're going to do here. And here we want to filter by ones where the post underscore UUID is equal to basically this right here. The underscore is happening because we're actually going into a model. So comments have a post. So we're talking about the post, but we specifically want its UUID. So we have to have this double underbar. And that's just part of the Django ORM to be able to kind of go into nested objects. Secondly, we're going to check if kwargs.get. And I think we just called this PK. Yep, PK right there. Then we'll essentially do the same thing, just a slight difference. Instead of using the ID, instead of using UUID, we're going to do post ID is equal to this. Now, in the case that neither of these came through, which frankly won't happen because it's only going to hit this if one of those two are met, but it's still a good sort of practice. Let's just raise an exception here. And this is where we can sort of use our bad request right here and actually just raise it. And that will, essentially not just exit out of this, but it'll also send back a response to the API client saying there's been a bad request. So it still will give JSON back. So it's not going to like break everything. Then, so we've updated our query set here, and then we can just do what we were doing in the post list view, which is returning super.list. So after we do all this and we've overridden what our query set is, we can go, self.list. It's going to use our new query set because we've set it here, self.query set, and we'll get comments back that are only part of that post. Okay, let's test to see if that works. So first of all, in order to test this, we don't have a way to create them yet now, but we do have a lovely admin. So let's grab our owner. Let's grab our post. Let's use my API post 2222 first comment, and we will just go and save it. Then we'll open up Postman, and I will need to see which one this was. Of course, I probably chose one that is not published, which we want to, this is actually removed. So the fun thing about soft deleting is we can unsoft delete it. So now if I hit this again, I should have that API post 222 in here. Here it is. So now I can grab this UUID, and let's open up, let us actually within post, because I want to map this to the same URLs. We're going to make a new request, and we're going to call this list post comments. And this will simply be slash post slash, and we'll just do UUID slash comment. And that just maps to what we put over in the URLs here, slash comment. So we'll do that. And then I do have to paste in the UUID here, which is just basically allowing me to have a nice place to update this value here. And if we hit send, we'll see we get back that one comment, and there it is, first comment. So that's nice. We have a way to get comments now. What about creating comments? This actually is pretty easy. So let's create that. We are going to make a new region here, just called like authenticated, because these are things you actually need to be authenticated for. Obviously, doing these regions is completely optional. It's just a nice pattern that I'm used to. Okay, so in this one, we're going to create the comment create view. So comment create view, and we're still going to extend our comment API view, but we're going to override a few things. First of all, our permission classes are going to be is authenticated. So you have to be authenticated to hit this, otherwise it's going to throw an error, which is what we want. Also, we're going to have a different serializer class here, which we're going to make right now. So I'm going to open up my comment serializers, and we're going to make a new serializer, and it's going to be called comment create serializer, because this will be specific to just creating it. And instead of using a model serializer, we're actually just going to use serializers.serializer, which is a more generic one. It has less of the magic that will automatically like make things for you. But there is a way to do what I'm doing within our normal comment serializer for sure. But I kind of want to show just a different pattern because it's something there will be cases you will most likely need. So in here, we're not going to have meta. We're not going to be referencing a certain model, but we're going to be saying these are the fields that we need. And we're going to start by having an owner. Owner is required, but we're not going to ask the user to pass up the owner in the post data. We're going to be relying on the authentication token sent through, and that's just more like on the Django side. So we can use serializers.hidden field and then set a default where we use the serializers.current user default. So just some magic stuff. Then in our code, we'll be able to access owner without having to go through like the request.user and check if they're authenticated and all that kind of stuff. So we have owner there, which is cool. Next thing we're going to want is something that references the post, because when we're creating a comment, we need them to say what post, it's referring to, not just a random post. So here we're going to, in this case, use, there's a couple ways we do this, but we're going to use a slug related field. And the reason we're using this is because we actually want a string to be passed up. In fact, I want the UUID to be the thing that comes in here. There's also something called primary key related field, which is just a little bit simpler than this one because we don't have to say what parameter. It'll just use the ID. But I specifically want to require my API to use UUIDs more for like security purposes, so people can't just spam random numbers and post a comment to all everything in our database, that kind of thing. So when we use a slug related field, which doesn't just have to be for slugs, it's anything string. First of all, we have to say what field we're using, and in that case, we're using a UUID. And secondly, we need to pass a query set. And we need to import our query set for that. So from api.post.query sets import, and in this case, public post query sets, because I don't want someone to be able to comment on a post that's removed, obviously, but I also don't want them to be able to comment on one that's a draft. It kind of seems weird. How would they comment on it? Of course, your use case might be different, and maybe you allow commenting on drafts, but I'm specifically saying filter these like posts. They have to be within here, otherwise it's going to throw an error, which is what we want. Lastly, and most simply, we're going to have a body, and this is just a serializer.char field. And if for some reason the body wasn't required, we could put in here required equals false, required equals false, but we do want it to not, we want it to be required because writing a comment with no value doesn't really make sense. All right, so there we have that. So now we can go back here, and instead of this underscore thing, we'll actually reference this, and we will import this we already have an import to our comment serializer, so let's also import our comment create serializer. Okay, now here's where the fun stuff happens. So we're going to put a post method in here, because when we create things, we want to use posts. That's the practice in anything RESTful. And here, yeah, we're not going to rely on the magic of Django REST Framework too much here. I'm going to show you how to actually like override and do kind of what Django REST Framework would do under the hood for, making a post like we did previously. So the first thing we need to do is get access to our serializer. And here we can just go self.getSerializer. And we have to pass in our request.data. So we just go data equals request.data. So that will pass through basically the post data that was submitted. Then we need to run serializer dot, it's a hard word, serializer dot is valid. So we run this little function, which will validate it. And we do want to say raise exception equals true, because if it's not valid, we want to just raise an exception and not continue on with this and give the API client back a response saying, this field was missing or whatever. Then we know it's valid at this point, so we can actually get access to a few different things here. So we can go user equals serializer dot validated data, which is a field that that will exist after we've run the is valid. And then we can go dot get and just get the owner. Because that's what we called it over here, owner. So we'll do that. We'll also get the post, and we can do the same sort of thing, post, and body. And what's cool about using this slug related field or any of the related fields is I'm not actually getting the UUID back. I'm getting the post itself. So it doesn't, now I don't have to like do a lookup to be like, okay, I know the post ID, now get me the post and It's just like, I have the post at this point. It's magical. Then all we really have to do is go comment equals comment dot objects dot create. And here we have to pass in the things that the comment requires. One of them is the owner. Another is the reference to that post. So we'll pass that in. And body equals body. And I probably should just keep this simple and call this owner instead of user. Then, we're pretty much done. The comment will be created at this point, but we need to still tell the API client, what is, we want to give it back a success message or something. And usually it's best to send them back the actual comment object itself, because it's going to have the ID and the created ad and the UUID in it in case they want to, delete it or something. So we're actually going to return response. And in here, we actually have to pass in the data that we want to get back. And what's cool is we can use not our create comment serializer, but basically our normal comment serializer. We can pass this in here, and we can construct it with any data we want as long as it's a comment by just simply passing comment in. And that will now create an instance of that serializer with that data. Then we have to just say .data so that it actually becomes the JSON that is being expected. Then we also want to pass a status, and the status is going to be equal to status.http 201. I like using 201 in this case because something was actually created. It wasn't just like it's okay. No, it's better than okay. Something new. And we'll save that. Okay, great. Now for this, when we're creating a comment, I am going to do this sort of in our normal pattern where we put in the URLs within comment. So within here, we're going to basically import in that thing that we made. So from api.comment.views, we're going to import in the comment create view. And right here, we're going to have a path. And it's going to just be equal to just empty, because this will be the top level of it, just like we've done for creating a post. And here we want to use the comment create view.as view, just like that. And we'll just have a trailing comma, so it goes to a new line. Now we have to, of course, remember in our main URLs of the API, we also want to include comments here. And I like to keep these singular. There we go. So we do have an error. Okay, we're going to figure out what that is. And I think it's because we've seen this before, and it could just be a silly thing. It's because we have this underscore. I don't know why. I've did that a few times. It's just URL patterns, one word. Okay, so let's go to Postman now. And this now, we're going to make a whole new folder because this is outside of the posts namespace. So we'll make a folder. We will rename it comment. And within comment, we're going to make a new request, and we'll just call it list. We already did list comments. This is create comment. Create comment. And I'm just going to grab the create post one because it's kind of similar, and save myself a moment of time. But instead of post, it's going to be comment. Now let's just try to hit this without any body. So right now our body's empty. We should see back some, changes to post. So you'll notice we actually got this back. Get is not allowed. And the reason for that is we never made a, if we actually look at the comment create view, there's no get. We could, of course, have a get and do something with it and send back a response. But Django REST Framework, if you don't have the get or the post or the delete or the patch, basically, you'll just get this back right out the gate, just like a method not allowed. But let's change this to post as we, intended. And we'll hit it. And we're seeing post, this field is required. Body, this field is required. So let's go into our body, our form data. Let's do post and let's do body. I'm going to do body as, I guess this would be we'll call it our first API comment. And I'm just going to type something super random into here just to show how this protects us. So we actually get back an error post. It's not a valid UUID. So that was kind of our first check I was doing, because we said it should be, a UUID. Now, if we did do a valid UUID and it was just one not found, we would get a different type of error back. But let's actually get a UUID right here. And let's put that in here. And I don't think I copied that because I just saw some Python code. Let's make sure this is selected. Create comment, paste in here, and click send. And now we actually got a reference of that comment back. First API comment, really good. And if we go to our list post comments again, assuming I did the right one, we should have 2 in here now. So we do. And first comment, first API comment. So there, we have that. So that's pretty great. Now, lastly, we do want to have a way to allow people to delete their own comments. So we're going to make another view here, and we're just going to call this, this is still within this region. We're going to call this comment retrieve. So this will be for retrieving in case you have a need to give me this specific comment with this ID or whatever. We may support updating, although I'm probably not going to mock that in Postman or anything. I mostly want to just show you how to do delete. But here we're going to extend the retrieve model mixin, the update model mixin, the destroy model mixin, and then just our base one, our comment API view. Okay. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to put in again, I'm not going to worry about, in fact, let's just get rid of update. I'm not going to worry about updating. That's something you could do pretty easily, but we've already done something like that before, so no need. But we're going to have our normal get, and we're going to have our normal destroy, and that's all we really need, except remember the way we want to handle deleting is we don't really want to delete it. We want to do that soft delete. So similar to what we did in post, we do a perform destroy, and we say, okay, instance is delete equals true, and then actually save it. So it will override the normal delete function that Django REST Framework would normally try to do, which is actually delete it fully from the database and instead do this on our behalf. Now, there's one glaring problem here, and you can pause if you can think about it for a minute, but to spoil it, in case you didn't pause, right now, anyone who is just authenticated, because actually anyone, because we have allow any, as long as you know the ID or the UUID of a comment, you could delete it. And that's kind of a problem because we don't want that. We need, we basically would be open up opening the door to have people just come and delete things. Now in our post views, we didn't really have to worry about this specific thing, because our post view in the me ones, which is the only place we have it going, we're already, where is it? In our post me API view, we're already restricting that the posts must be owned by self-request.user. So we have that protected. It's fine. You can test it if you want. But for comments, we don't currently have that. We could do a similar thing, but I want to show you something cool, because in the idea for this app, I think we want to allow either the owner of the comment to delete it or the owner of the post of that comment. Because if I'm the one who posted and someone just spammed something, I should have the right to delete it. So we're going to go a little deeper into our permissions here. So let's open up our permissions.py. We haven't looked at this in a bit, but we have some sort of very basic things in here, allowing any, is admin, which we haven't used, but is a good thing to have, and is authenticated. But what I want to do is also make a couple more classes here to show you how that could work. So first of all, let's make one for is owner, which this is something we could use. We can refactor our posts to actually allow to use this one, even though it's not really necessary, as I explained a moment ago. But is owner, and this will be generic. It's not specific to posts, as long as we're following, and this is why I like using the word owner, or at least having something specific. Any model that has an is owner, we can kind of create this generic thing. And what we want to do is override instead of just has permission, we want to override what's called it has object permission right here. And has object permission by default. There's self, which it's class. It has to have self as its first method because it's not static. We get the request, we get the view back, and we get the object itself. And the object is actually the instance of whatever class this is connected to. So what we can actually do in here, instead of doing the super, which would happen, that's what default would happen, and basically would probably return true. What we want to check is, first of all, if request.user, we want to make sure there is a request.user. So similar, this is kind of the same thing as the is authenticated. We want to make sure there's a request.user, and we want to make sure the object.owner is equal to that request.user. And as long as we're using that owner field throughout the rest of our API, we can use this in many places. So I'd be able to then just go to my comment retrieve update view. Now I don't actually want to do this globally for this, but if we wanted to, you could just go, permission classes equal, and then just put this is owner in, which we would need to import here. And then this would just work. These endpoints would only be accessible. So getting and deleting, of course, would only be accessible if you're the owner of that comment. However, like I said, we want to allow also the post owner to do it. So what we can do here is we can make is comment or post owner. And we're going to extend is owner. We're going to basically use this and extend it. And the only reason to do that is to kind of save one line of code and to make it a little bit prettier and make it a little more dry, so that if we wanted to change some logic here, it would cascade into here. So here we will do a similar thing. Now, I want to actually, because I know this will only be placed on comments, I'm going to mark this as it's a comment, so we get the right IntelliSense. So we have to go from content.models, import comment. This is just for the type safety here. But what we can do is, first of all, there's two checks we can do. We can go is comment owner, and I'm just going to set this into this variable called is comment owner. And we can actually run our super.has object permission. So I'm basically going to run this version here, passing these things through. Because we know there's a view and object. And this will basically be, yes, this logic here, if they're the comment owner, this will become true. But then let's also check if they're the post owner. So in this case, we can actually go equals request.user, so similar to what we're doing above, and object.post.owner equals request.user. Then ultimately what we can do is return is comment owner or is post owner. As long as one of those is true, it'll return true right there. Now, we could do this even a little bit fancier, where we actually run this, and I'll just copy and paste this. We could actually go, this has permission, but instead of passing in the object, we can actually pass in object.post, right? So this will actually just check the permission on there. And I think that's actually an even cleaner way to do this. So we're checking it on the object itself, and then we're checking the object post right there. Again, this will only work for comment, or at least something that has an object. So that's why I like to have the word comment here to make it really clear. But this will be fine. So now let's import this instead of is owner. And let's actually set it where we did is owner. And that will now restrict the get. Sorry, I don't want to restrict the get though. This at this moment will restrict get and delete. Now, how can we do this for just delete? Well, we can go, and we've done something like this before. We can have a def get permission classes to actually make this, get permissions. And what we can do in here is go if self.request.method is equal to delete, then we can go self.permission classes equals this. So here I'm just going to make this allow any by default. But if the self.request.method is delete, we're going to override that to be this right here. And then we still have to run the super.getPermissions. So we're not actually running anything here. We're just overriding this and then letting Django REST Framework do its normal thing. And this kind of thing, is a little bit, I'm not going to test it and show it on the stream. You can, of course, your own, because it takes a little bit of work. You have to create another user and then test all these things out. So definitely do that on your own if you see, but we should be able to delete a comment now. So let's, we already created a comment. Let's just list our post comments again. And what I'm going to do in here is also create a new request. We're going to call it delete comment. We're going to make it a delete event. We're going to use API base URL /comment and I'll do UUID. And for our UUID, let's grab a comment from here. I'm going to grab the first comment. We'll get rid of U. So we'll just put UUID here. And this won't work yet because we still need to hook up this URL, right? So we'll go into our comment URLs and we're going to, let me just open up post URLs because it'll be kind of similar. I'm just going to grab these lines here. Let's import in comment, retrieve, update, destroy view, and just paste these here. I'm just going to test this first by putting it back to get, because this should return us just that single comment. Yeah, but delete is what I really wanted to show. So let's actually hit delete. Cool, it looks like it worked. We got a 204 no content. Let me try hitting it again. We actually see detail not found because it's been deleted already. And what's cool is we didn't even really delete it, right? It was just soft deleted. If we actually look at our comments, it's still going to be there, but it's marked as deleted. But because we are using that query set of if I can find it, comment API, we're using the all comments query set that's already filtering out is deleted. As far as the API is concerned, that doesn't exist. And that's what I wanted to really enforce here, is using this is just a great practice to handle those kind of things. Okay, so I think that's what I wanted to cover in this video. And yeah, I think that's about it. So comments, yeah, we now have comments. And of course, if you want to go a little bit further, you can create the retrieve endpoint in Postman if you want, obviously. And you can, flush this out more, add more things, do whatever you want. And even you could add the update, right? Allowing someone to edit their comment. And you'd probably want a similar permission, although you probably wouldn't want to use is post owner, is comment or post owner. You'd probably just want to have only the comment owner can edit it, because you probably don't want the, people to be able to edit other people's comments. It's one thing to delete it if you're the owner, if you're the post's owner, but having that guy be able to edit your comment to say whatever you want, yeah, probably don't want to do that. So there you have it. Okay, cool. So I think we're at a good spot where in the next video, I'm actually going to boot up Flutter and sort of start integrating what we've built so far in the front end. So we kind of see the full picture, because I know Postman's beautiful and, really functional, and I do a lot of work just in this. Seeing it actually magically start to show up in your front end, is a lot more fun. So we'll see you in the next one.